Well, whether you saw my intro or didn't, welcome. This is the first two of 11 lessons. These will be the same kinds of presentations I used when teaching this in middle school, high school, and college. The lessons are 15 to 20-minute sections. Unit 1 begins with basic parts of speech, simple nouns. I've redefined them as something you can touch or hold. That's just to be as simplistic as possible so that the focus can be on sentence structure. The issues of common, proper, and capital letters will be talked about later. It'll make more sense once we get into the lessons. The first few lessons may be dull if you're a native English speaker. If you clearly understand nouns, feel free to skip to lesson 3. By the way, that's me, Jeanette Labar. I developed this method over 30 years of teaching to address the wide difference of abilities of the students who arrived each fall. That way, when I used this method, everyone got a common jargon and a clear understanding of sentence structure. For those of you who missed my reasoning, here's a reminder of what I'm presenting and why. STEM is the current focus of schools all across America. That's all well and good, but STEM is missing a couple of letters, R and W, reading and writing, which really can't be ignored. We'll address reading and writing in subsequent lessons. Maybe people have been skipping reading and writing because currently it takes 12 years to become competent in grammar. Grammar textbooks assume that the average student can't master the most complex of sentences until junior year in high school. That's an unfortunate error in millions of grammar books. These students have been using the most complex of sentence structures since they learned to talk. They had no idea that they were, but they fully understood how to compose and communicate with complete sentences by the time they were 3. Everybody can learn 21st century grammar. The fact that even the very young can learn this grammar is absolutely true. Even those who have English as a second language could benefit eventually. Even kindergarten kids were taught grammar using this method. The teachers took my method back to their classrooms and taught grammar this way. Well, that's enough yakking. Let's get started. Move as fast or as slowly as you wish and review as you need. When I taught this, I always reviewed the previous information before adding new aspects to the lesson. This program assumes that you can do the reviewing as you need on your own. Before we get started, we need an explanation of these characters. Teach will teach, and I'll comment when necessary. Now there's one more introduction. The rooster's here to stop you from leaping in several directions before you have the skills to do so. Units 1 and 2 are all the students need to become competent writers. The rest is style. Though the lessons will touch on some more advanced grammar, Rooster will come and point out what advanced stuff you don't need to learn at this time. Grammar lessons 3, 4, and 5 are for English and writing teachers and those who wish to know the deep, gory details about grammar. Students can be successful writers with only levels 1 and 2. Okay, let's go. We'll start with just 2 of the 8 parts of speech. Each part of speech I introduce will be represented by some character or symbol to give you a visual you can associate with the information. The lesson on parts of speech is a separate unit, which you can access at a later date. You don't really need it, just follow along. There are only 4 types of sentences. Really, this is a fact that every grammar book I've ever looked at, regardless of grade level, never says clearly. The 4 sentence types are the writing skeleton upon which all other grammar aspects are built. That's where we're headed. Every sentence needs a noun and a verb. They also need to make sense, but you'll know if it makes sense when you read it. Let's begin with nouns. Nouns are fairly simple. A noun is a part of speech. That's just information, but do remember it. Lots of people seem to be able to recite this definition, but it's meaningless if you can't use it to identify nouns. Think of a noun this way. A noun is something you can touch or hold. It's simpler and, for the most part, fairly foolproof. Okay, now for some examples. You can touch or hold nearly anything, like the fish on the plate and the plate they're sitting on. There's many other things you can touch or hold, like the safety glasses, like the pitcher or the yellow liquid in the pitcher, the stand, the puff of steam, even the flame if you're fast enough, one or all of the test tubes. The lab table. All these things are nouns. All these things can be touched or held. That was a quick lesson. Mostly easy stuff just to ease you into the idea. Lesson 2 is a tiny bit more challenging. Hold on to that knowledge and let's move on. In Lesson 2, we're still talking about nouns, but here we need to talk about a little different kind of noun. This is the part of the definition of noun that takes a bit more mental agility. Assume that you're touching or holding these things in your mind. Nouns are those idea, quality, or concept part of the definition. It's a bit flaky to think like this, but it eliminates the mental gymnastics of the noun definition. This form of thinking gets easier once we get to actual sentences. In the meantime, there's always the dictionary avenue if need be. A quick quiz. Which of these things is a noun? The endings give them away. Each lesson will include a short quiz after it, just like I did in class. Well, that's it. We covered nouns. Now on to verbs with a little more mental gymnastics.